All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for everyone for joining. This is our ongoing weekly meetings for Technical Consult. Today is already May the 6th. I think what I was hoping that we can do today is do a quick summary of where we're at coming out of the past couple of months. I've updated, I made some updates to our um, um, so a statement of work essentially, and the bylaws of the technical council. Wanted to review that today, kind of review the progress and go through some operational stuff. But the second portion of the meeting, or majority of the portion, I'd like to spend on going through feedback discussions for the standard that we already uploaded and done some work over the last couple of weeks in terms of creating the first structure that and make sure that we're aligned. And then finally, we can prioritize standards for the next couple of weeks, for the next 2 weeks. And then I'll be scheduling the meetings around those as we've done in the past. And of course, love to hear your feedback if those meetings are taking the right shape. That's the preferred method of work. Any adjustments, any recommendations, maybe do a quick retrospective on that. Does that sound good for today's plan?
Sounds good to me.
Amazing. All right, so let's take a look at the current state. So a couple of things that I have done. Oops, let me just. So first of all, this document, Polywrap Technical Console, there's a couple of changes to that README file that I updated. First of all, I added the link to the a link to the standards library. So it's and obviously last time we did this, I've gone through the organization process, so everything is organized in folders. I've added under operations the acceptance criteria for the standards and created a placeholder for similar exercise for the features. Wanted to review the acceptance criteria for each standard to make sure that that's in line with expectations. We already identified that once the ticket is prioritized in the project plan for the standard under the standards, and we're sort of kicking off work on that, we will conduct a workshop. We'll of course create description and details, and that description will go into the ticket. I have a couple of ones that I'm missing description. We can adjust that. We talked about with Jordan and I almost forget. I think it was somebody else um, that we discussed that we might want to examine and include some pseudocode examples to each to each document, and want to make sure. So I added that as one of the acceptance criteria as well. And then we'll go through the initial feedback, the final feedback, obviously as we go through a number of interactions, and then do a final acceptance. And at that point, the document will be considered to be complete until additional changes are requested. Is this the right acceptance criteria, or do we want to add some more components in here to make sure um, that we go through all of those things before we ready for acceptance?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Yeah, it allows us the ability to have a first round of feedback and make changes and have a final round of feedback. Yeah, I think it all looks good.
Awesome. So Joe, for the features next time for the meeting, let's add a similar step to make sure that we have a well-defined acceptance criteria for all of the features definition as well.
Okay.
And I'll add that in here. One of the things that I have been doing, so for the, let me go back to just one example here. So I've updated the ticket descriptions. So for example, for wrap protocol, if I open up this ticket, um, uh, the layout of the description here or of this ticket has the following structure. It's obviously has the description, a link to the standard doc, which is if it's already uploaded, all our workshop notes links, including link to a HackMD, the owners, and then the acceptance criteria we just went through. So as we continue through this, we can, I know Jordan, you mentioned that you liked keeping this kind of list right there in the ticket. So I've made sure that all of the tickets that in that status that we're working through right now have the same structure. Description, standard doc, workshop notes, owners, and acceptance criteria. Anything else that we want to keep in this list that I'm missing in your other recommendations?
I can't really think of any. I think it looks really nice as it is right now.
Awesome. Well, and of course we can change that as we continue going through this. But I've done the same thing for all of them that are currently in the review progress in vacation style. I think that's the only one that's missing description that I couldn't extract it easily. So we'll come back to that and fix that. All right, so that's the second part of the operational activity is that I updated all those tickets, linked them up. And of course, for the ones that we already ready for the initial review, I've uploaded all of the existing comments and notes to the standards, to our standards. So you can link them up too. So you can see that this is under general standards already. We already have a document called wrap standard. And you can see that it's uploaded. And of course, we can continue maintaining it here as well. And finally, let me go back. I added a new section in a Polywrap Technical Console. Well, and added a new folder called Ops Reports. I think this is intended to be a monthly activity where we can, on a monthly basis, just do a quick summary of what the activities that the console had performed during this period on the operational side. And then, of course, within the standards definition and then within the features definition. And the way that we can organize this easily to be able to take a snapshot, I added a new column on the roadmap called operations period, so we can be clear what particular feature that we are or standard or activity is tied to a particular months for monthly reporting. And some of them are going to be ongoing, but of course, kind of connected this way. So this way we can kind of track our progress on the monthly basis. And Jordan, now I'm also going to use the same component to post end of month reports in the forum. How's that look? Looks good? Unless you guys don't, it's unless you don't want it to be part of this document, then keep adding reports here. I can just take that out if you don't want to see it here and just keep it under the ops reporting, sort of behind the scenes. Or you like that?
No, I think it's useful just to be able to track progress here. I think this is all really awesome.
Okay, and this is intended to be as a snapshot because you can always check the progress directly into a project plan, right? But this is, things might change in the project plan because it's more dynamic. But having a snapshot, I think, is good to know what was the view at that particular time at the end of April or beginning of May. So anyway, all right. So I think that covers the operational stuff. Anything else on the operations before we get into the review sessions? Let me just pull up the agenda real quick just to make sure we cover everything. So this is 5.6. So quick progress updates on standards. Oh, I didn't go through that. Let me just maybe summarize that real quick. And then we've gone through the standards acceptance criteria operation report. So let's actually take a look at the what has been accomplished. So in April, we finished and organized our qualities. I think that was a good progress on that. We created the standards repository and organized them by folders. So you saw that. And of course, we've determined that we're going to continue using the GitHub as our publishing platform. And of course, GitHub handles versioning very well. So that's a good step, and that's done. And then we've done a number of workshops. Obviously, we started kicking off workshops only the beginning of the week. Well, I'm sure then in May, we're going to have a lot more workshops, but we're operating on the two weeks cadence. So our target should be 2 to 3 workshops per sprint. So we're looking at 4 to 6 workshops a month. If we want to expedite that, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're comfortable. That seems to be the pace that everybody's comfortable with right now. Is that in line with what you would think is an appropriate velocity? And then, of course, sorry, and of course, in parallel, there will be features discussion scheduled as well. So this is just specifically for workshops. So anyway, so that I don't know. Any feedback? Is that seems like a good velocity? Nestor, your
Yeah, I think that the current velocity is nice, and it doesn't impede too much on development that's ongoing. Um, and I think that after we make this first release, maybe want to do a little more, just so that way we can have our standard released soon after.
I
But
got you.
yeah, I think that for right now, this is good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Cool. Cool. Great. 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 All right. And then of course there's going to be ongoing processes every cycle. We're going to go through a number of features, roadmap definition, number of technical standards that we are selecting for this for the next quote unquote sprint. And then I'll continue updating and reporting along with Joe's help on the technical console deliverables, operations, and performance report like you saw today. And then specifically to standards, we have gone through our 4 standards at this point fairly well. We've got all 4 at this point have initial drafts. They've been posted to the right folder in the standards repo, and we're starting to go through the initial or the next round of feedback on all 4 of this. And today we're going to spend some time on this. And on features, these are the features that we've been defining, identifying to through set of workshops and working sessions that Joe had facilitated in the month of April as well. All right, so that's our standard report. And our next step in the agenda, if everyone is comfortable with this, is to jump into the feedback discussion. So just first one, start with the wrap protocol, or do you have anyone specifically you want to go through? And do we have the right forum here to go through the feedback cycle? Because I think that we have, a lot of people joined. Hey, hi Evan, and hi Niraj. So let's start with wrap protocol, and would love to hear some thoughts as to what the feedback process needs to look like. But you can see here, this is already posted. All right, so this is the technical. So we have the description. We have a standard doc. Let me open that link. And that's already organized in the general standards. So that's what we're going to be reviewing today. We have some workshop notes. We need to reference those. The owners and the acceptance criteria. So we conducted the workshop. We added the description. There's plenty of details at this point in here. And let our acceptance criteria is to determine whether we need to add some pseudocode, maybe on the reps protocol, not clear if we need to, but we want to go through our initial feedback round right now.
Awesome. So would you like kind of one of the owners to walk through this and introduce it to the others, or?
I think that's a great idea. So um, Jordan, Nestor, or Niraj, if you would like to sort of present it to the rest of the team, and then we can go through the initial review, initial feedback, and capture those.
Yeah, so I can do the presenting, and I would love additional thoughts, but um, so the idea here is to explain what exactly the wrap standard is. In this first paragraph, it talks about the acronym standing for WebAssembly Random Access Protocol. Um, it also references, the underlying standard of WebAssembly and why we use it, um, as well as kind of what the meaning is behind random access. So here, random access really just means accessible on demand via its URI. In the next section, we kind of talk about why do we need another standard. So here we talk about the shortcomings of WebAssembly and the main benefits of using the wrap standard. These four things being composability, interfaces, complex data passing, and naming and addressing. And so then next down here, how does wrap work? The idea was to kind of break out the high level pieces of what makes the wrap protocol itself. So, being able to build these wrappers where you are defining interfaces, generating bindings, and compiling to WebAssembly and deploying your wrapper. And so in each of these, we just give a brief introduction to what these steps look like, and then we link out to the standards that dive into more detail into how to actually do these things. And then lastly, in the using wrappers section, the idea was to talk through what some of the different users of these wrappers like what their development process will look like. Um, I think that this will probably be just from the application developer's perspective. Also maybe from a plugin developer's perspective. And so yeah, as you can see, the different sections are client configurations, plugins, URI resolution, loading the wrapper, and invoking the wrapper. So yeah, this is the general overview, and as you can imagine, this last section will look a lot like the section above, with just a brief introduction, and it'll link to other standards. Yeah. Any thoughts?
I, I don't
Hey,
want to
can
say.
you hear me?
We,
Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Sorry, Jim.
sorry, Evan.
We can hear you.
I almost want to say that I, I I do not think that the wrap standard should include the runtime for the client, but I feel like it should somehow express how it's consumed or how it can be consumed.
Okay, so specifically in this document, like what section would you change?
Maybe add another step, as you call it here. Okay, no, that's building wrappers, I guess. Okay, there's serialization. That's a related standard. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll think about it.
I just had one comment under the deploy wrapper section. I'm not sure that we should necessarily, and this is just a minor point, but I'm not sure that we should necessarily reference the registry here, except to say that maybe something more generic, something along the lines of, you know, uh, uh, we expect in the future that there will be, multiple ways where using the same URI and URI resolution standards, there may be multiple ways to access wrappers at runtime. I just think like the reference to the Polywrap registry specifically here feels a little bit I don't know, awkward, but it just a little bit like it's reference to a specific service that is maybe a little bit orthogonal to the actual the standard itself.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Okay, so we can just take out that paragraph entirely because I think that the first paragraph does a decent job introducing it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It should not be referenced. It's something that's built on top of the wrap standard. So, kind of referencing it from the other side is like a circular dependency, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
So this paragraph.
Yep. Yeah. Just feel free to delete that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Cool. Any other thoughts?
All right, so let me ask you a question. Do we want to schedule a follow-up session, excuse me, in the workshop to address these to-dos? That would be my recommendation, right? Is just to do another workshop.
Yeah, I think that we've had our initial feedback, and so we can just have another quick workshop to implement any feedback and finish everything up, and then yeah, we'd be good to go for the final round of feedback and the acceptance. Yeah.
Okay, so here's how I would like to approach this. For the feedback, um, the ones that we haven't captured yet, if you don't mind just adding the feedback straight into the ticket here with comments, I think that's probably the best way to capture that, and that will become a topic of the conversation for the next workshop. If you can add that here prior to the meeting, that would be great. And then I will, of course, and another step here. Okay, and that will be on me. All right, anything else? We're okay with adding the feedback straight here. And by the way, as we do this, we can you're welcome to just go ahead. And I'll have the ticket open on the side, and you're welcome to go ahead and adding the feedback comments, and then we can call it initial review complete. Initial feedback.
Super organized.
All right, so that's this guy. Close this guy. So the next one was, okay, we went through rep protocol, initial feedback. I'll update this later. Okay, the next one was URI. URI and actually URI resolution sort of come hand in hand, but let's start with the URI. So same thing, we have the document already. Let me just go ahead and open that. Nope, what am I doing? Standard document, excuse me. Here it is. And then of course the ticket, This is issue 27 URI. So we can add the comments here, and let me do it like this. You can see both. Jordan, Jury, we're working on this document. I uploaded this. By the way, Jury, thank you so much for participating in that workshop. And who would like to present this? And I'll keep the comments available here. Feedback.
Sure, I could present.
Please.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, you just went. So this is about the URI standard. So this is without the URI resolution, which comes as a standard on top of this. So how do we handle URIs? So like we listed here, the wrap URI standard allows developers to reference a wrapper through simple strings. It's just like referencing a website through like an HTTP URI. So we built this on leveraging existing URI standards and how W3C does it. So there's three main components to the URI. There's the scheme, the authority, and the target. And of course, like the note says here, the scheme is prepended by default. So that's the W3 scheme, but we named it or renamed it to wrap, just like the wrap standard. The scheme, like it says here, wrap is used to indicate the wrap URI, okay, similar to HTTP. So by seeing this wrap scheme at the start as a prefix to a URI, the developer knows that it is referencing a wrap URI so that it can be resolved through the URI resolution standard. And that's described in the wrap URI resolution standard document. Second comes the authority. So authority can be any string. I'm not sure have we defined encoding. Can Jordan jump in on this? Do you remember?
Yeah, that's a good point. We should have some like regular expression here or something, basically defining what the valid characters are.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? So under authority
Yeah.
authority for
section,
the valid authority string, add just a regex for the characters, I guess. Quick question though, what does the valid authority string link to? See, it's a link.
Oh, got it. Yeah, so it does link to the standard from the W3C, and I think that they have that information there. Yeah, so would you mind clicking on that link, Eugene? And yeah, just to see where that takes us.
I don't think it mentions, but they might have the regex or the valid characters as a part of the whole URI, and so authority follows that same pattern, except certain characters are forbidden from that subset.
Okay, so yeah, I feel like we should still add, our own specification of how we're parsing this.
For sure, and that applies to the whole URI. So, okay, the scheme is obvious, but the target is the same, right? So, Eugene, you can add, you said add a valid authority string example and also like a pattern example, like a regex. It's not an example, it's a scheme, I guess, a spec. And do the same for the target component.
Under target section, add a valid.
String scheme spec, whatever. Just remove the valid authority. Valid, okay, yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
So the authority is of course preceded by the double slash that comes from the scheme, wrap semicolon slash slash. And can you go up a bit to the authority? And it's terminated by the next slash, so it can of course not include slashes. This is later on used by the URI resolvers to be able to see if a URI belongs to them. Now comes the target, which is the last component. Target is everything that comes after the authority's terminating slash, and it's only useful when talking in the context of a certain authority. So, like we said here, for some URI authorities, there may be a special syntax character, some special syntax that's supported within the target URI, like the query argument. So targets have a specific pattern or syntax that they follow depending on the authority. Example wrap URIs. So here we listed a couple of examples for ENS, IPFS, HTTP, and file system. And we listed the authorities for each of those that we currently use in our resolvers. But of course, anyone can come in and define a file system authority that isn't FS, but maybe says file system, and create a resolver for that authority.
Yeah, one quick thought on the file system authority. I think that we made a mistake by calling it FS. I think instead we should use what already exists today, which is file, because there is already like a file URI scheme that exists. File colon slash slash.
Yep, for sure. That's a mistake.
Okay, so yeah, I guess just adding another to do of change FS to file in the standard and also in the code base, I guess.
I added that into the feedback section and we'll generate it to do.
Oh, sweet, thank you.
I have a new question, which is probably related to URI resolution, but like Polywrap will still have an ANS as authority by default, or the user will need to input like the authority every time he wants to interact with something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so currently, if you just do, let's say, domain.eth, that will not be recognized. You have to do ENS slash and then your domain. So in the currently the Polywrap client comes with the ENS plugin added to it, so it knows how to resolve these. But in the future, the plugin configurations for the client will be something separate because they're kind of bloating the client package right now. So basically, like in the future, you will import the client, and then you'll also import like a preset configuration, which is maybe like IPFS and ENS resolvers, or something like that. So in the future, the client will be totally generic, and then you can find default configurations to use for it.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. How we're doing? Anything else we want to add to the feedback?
Yeah, I have one other piece. So I think that Evan brought up a really great point. When looking at this, and I'm gonna paraphrase his feedback. When looking at this, it seems strange to have HTTP not at the far left, so not as a scheme, like you would traditionally see. And so, the reason for doing this is because, HTTP is kind of like a nested authority under the wrap resolution scheme, um, which you could say, okay, like that makes sense. But I still feel like from a user's perspective, a lot of people will expect to be able to just paste in like an HTTP URI or a file URI, and just have that work out of the box. And so it like I think that this is kind of cool. And I was wondering if we should maybe add a section here about converting existing URIs to wrap URIs. So if you're given a traditional URI that does not have the wrap scheme, like wrap clients will make an effort to convert it by basically taking that scheme that exists, which would be HTTP or file, and then making that the authority, and then putting everything else in the target section. So that way, like, we can have a conversion process defined for traditional URIs. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense. Seems like it could work, and I don't see a problem with it, at least immediately.
Okay, cool. And then, do you think that this should live in this document, or do you think it should just be kind of a special feature of the Polywrap client?
Depends. So my question is, how do we define which protocols do we support? So for this kind of default, do we support HTTP, HTTPS, file system, or file? Do we support IPFS? Do we add in the future support for other protocols?
Yeah, so I think, it should stay generic. So basically, it's like the only thing we would say is that if the scheme is not set to wrap, um, the wrap client will make an effort to convert and resolve the URI by taking the existing scheme, whatever it may be, and putting that as the authority. So just basically shifting
Yeah.
everything to the right.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense. But this is kind of related, I guess, loosely to this. So we do have example URIs. Um, hmm. Should we have the example URIs maybe? I'm kind of thinking that this is similar to the deployment in the wrap standard, where we're kind of listing things that, I mean, yeah, they're well established standards, I guess. So it's fine. Never mind.
Okay, cool. So maybe after this example wrap URI section, we add maybe one last section, which is URI conversion process or something. And then yeah, we just talk about the conversion, and then we can give maybe like two more examples there of like, here's how we would convert an HTTPS URI, or here's how we would convert a file URI.
Yeah, sounds good.
You said URI conversion section?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning my previous feedback, Jordan, and for answering my question in the technical council channel. I still had one comment or question about the something that was brought up earlier about the for the target, the maybe the need for a some string spec or scheme, or talking about like a regular expression that you could evaluate to determine whether the path is valid or the target is valid. And I'm just wondering, like, and I only say this from experience of, like, having done like email validation stuff in the past, and just like how complex the regular expression gets to determine whether something is a valid email address. But even after doing all that, you still don't know whether it's valid until you actually try sending something to it, and seeing if it gets delivered. And so I wonder here too, like, if there is additional value provided by provided by some sort of, again, scheme or regular expression or something that is described. Because I think one, I think that the chances that it might, that it might evolve and it might, lead to false negatives, or I think is high. And then two, I think even if it does satisfy that scheme or that regular expression, like, you still don't know if it's valid. Like, you could still it still could not be a valid target. So um, just wanted to point those couple things out.
Yeah, so currently we've just been treating the target as just a blank like string, with no kind of like complex parsing at all. Basically, like, all we do is we just look for that first slash, and then we just take everything after that and call that the target. And it's left up to the URI resolvers to actually parse that and to be able to fetch it. And so, for example, inside of the IPFS resolver, it will make sure that the target is a valid hash. And then if it, is actually a hash that is valid, then it'll go out and try and fetch it. And so, yeah, I don't think that we can or should define any patterns for the target, since they can be so widely varied.
Cool. And would that apply for all? Would the same thing apply for all of these resolvers, or I mean, is that IPFS specific, or would the same thing hold true for all of them? Like, the resolver themselves would determine, like, maybe first, like, is this a valid target, and if so, then let me try and see if I can get it.
Yep. Yeah. It's true for all of them. Yeah. All of
Okay.
them will do that sanitization.
Should we
Okay.
define the strings, the authority and the target to be UTF-8?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And I also think that that's in the URI standard from the W3C. But yeah, we should check on that. Yeah.
Sorry, what's the action? What's the feedback?
We
Defining
should.
authority and target as UTF-8 encoding.
Yeah. So basically making sure that the W3C standard says UTF-8.
And if it does, I would still, actually, whatever it says, I would still reiterate that in our standard. I think that would be good. That make it more clear to the reader.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah.
Help me wordsmith the last 2 points, please. Make
The
sure that.
lad in UTF, it's 8, like the number.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
-8, yeah.
Exactly, -8.
So that means we'll still have.
What about? Go ahead, Evan.
Sorry, I was just going to make a joke. I was going to say that means we'll support emojis in these targets.
Absolutely. Yes.
Cool, 100%.
If the resolver supports it, yeah. What about URI encoding? Because the URI standard does have that, I think. Should the wrap URI standard have URI encoding?
What do you mean by URI encoding?
For example, special characters are encoded differently, like with the percentage sign.
Or for example, like a space is percentage 20 or something like that.
20, yeah.
Got it. Yep. So yeah, like all of that stuff. I think that falls within the target. And yeah, it's up to the HTTP resolver to be able to handle those. Yeah. So I don't think that we need anything about special characters here.
Should we add some kind of a statement here that and with a link to the to that standard? Just to make sure that we cover that.
Yeah, like if I'm not mistaken, that's a part of the HTTP URI standard for representing spaces and stuff, with %20 and whatnot. So I don't think that we should
Okay.
be specific.
I just wanted to
So
check, did I write this up correctly? Let me just help wordsmith this properly. Provide support to resolve standard HTTP, URIs, maybe HTTPS too, or just HTTP?
Yeah,
any
I think
protocol.
I think that that's fine. Yeah, it's
Do we
enough to let us know what we need to do.
do we have any use cases of URI arguments aside from an HTTP URI?
Yeah, I'm sure. But you know, since this is generic and we're not entirely sure of what all the uses will be, you know,
Right.
I'm not exactly what they are right now. But maybe, for example, let's say that IPFS comes out with a new standard for arguments for resolution or something like, yeah.
Cool.
Any other feedback?
Yeah, so we said make sure W3 standards use UTF-8. So I think, like I said, if they do, I think we should mention that in our standard. But we should also, since we linked to the W3C's URI standard, I think we should mention that we do not have URI encoding unless a resolver does that, or that's up to the resolver. I think we should explicitly mention that. Yeah, that's good.
What else? I think this is a good start, right? So let me go ahead and add this here. So same, just add this here as well, since we're keeping it all in the same place. Initial feedback. So we'll schedule, same thing, we'll schedule a follow-up workshop, right? To address this, or do we want to work on this offline, on this feedback workshop?
For me personally, I like the workshops just because it's easy for this to fall off the radar. Yeah.
I'll schedule
I
it.
could do it either, but workshops are awesome because they force me to actually take time to do this stuff.
Perfect. I'll set that up. All right, awesome, great feedback. A lot of details here. So I think we've got, we capture this, so we'll go through that feedback and update the standard, and then we'll be ready for a final feedback, or maybe we'll do another round. We'll see how things turn out. All right, let's see where we at. Since we're talking about the URI, maybe it's a good idea to jump really quick into the URI resolution. No, not URI resolution. My apologies. There you go. Here we go. URI resolution. Just pull it up here on the side. Actually, I don't think we're gonna have time. We have 5 minutes left. So maybe let's hold that until the next review session, if that's okay. I do have
That
one
sounds good. I still need to do stuff in that document.
based on this note.
Yeah.
Would you like me to schedule a workshop? You said you like workshops, right? So maybe we can schedule the second workshop to just continue working on it, right?
Yeah, sure.
All right, really quick question before we close this for today. we have this story that we've been working through to define the SLA for Polywrap. At one point, we discussed adding this as a standard, but when we gone through the standard definition, we didn't add that. So I wanted to make sure that we still want to add it as a standard, and if we do, if that belongs here on the standards project, and if we do, what category should that go under? And let's
Yes.
make sure we capture that.
So I don't think that the SLA should be a part of the standard. Um, Maybe it should be kind of a part of the technical council. But yeah, it's something completely different. Like it's like services that the Polywrap DAO is maintaining for its users. And so yeah, I think that the first step though is to just take that issue that you had pulled up, and then once it's kind of looking good, we'll probably just post it in the forum, and then have like a DAO vote on it or something like that. And then as we have more SLAs in the future, we can maybe figure out a better process for it that may or may not include the technical council stuff.
Okay. Well, let
Yeah.
me continue working with you, Jordan, on this, just to make sure that we don't, because it wasn't on the technical console list. It's not on my radar, so I want to make sure that if we want to keep it on the radar here and have part of the technical conversations, we add it to the task list. Did you just want to maybe have a discussion on that, allocated maybe separate workshop, just allocated to this?
No, I think it's good. I actually have that tab pulled up, and I'm trying to get it closed out soon. So, I'm gonna go through your feedback and add it, and then it should be good to have some final review and get it all done. So, TLDR, I think it can all happen async. And thank you for all the added feedback.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that covers all the items on the agenda. We unfortunately didn't get through all of the initial feedbacks, but that's perfectly fine because we're, actually doing a feedback round for the first time. So it will give me a better sense as to what our velocity for these things are. And I'll adjust the agendas appropriately. And then, of course, we'll pick up the other components during the next discussion. And then, of course, those are just pull that up real quick. To go to technical console. So we went through protocol, URI, or it's the only one that we haven't covered today in more details, invocation standards. So that will fall into the next meeting, and then I'll be scheduling the workshops coming out of today's discussion. Anything else before we close out? Any other feedback, comments, recommendations?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's pretty cool to see all this coming together. And so thank you for organizing it and facilitating it. And yeah, this is really exciting.
Awesome. Great, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone dedicating your time and spending time with the technical console group. So really, thank you so much. It's at the end of the day, I'm just an organizing, and Joe is facilitating, and myself, but you guys doing all the work. So thank you for that.
Thanks,
Stop the
Eugene.
recording. Thanks, guys.